This is the story of a boy who is a gang leader, but he goes to school to graduate. There are so many things wrong with that school: the bullying, the corruption, and the domination of the rich parents. Let's see how he ends up making everything right. Welcome to Movie Recall. In today's video, we will be going through the 2001 movie My Boss, My Hero. It's time to recall. Let's get started. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. The movie starts and we see a fight going on between two rival gangs. Our main character, Do-shik, is a gang leader and one of the gangs is led by him. When they get back to their place, the gang members talk about how their gang is growing rapidly in Myeongdong. Do-shik is due for a promotion to take over the Myeongdong district of Seoul, but many of the gang's upper brass feel he is not well educated enough to take on such an important territory, as many of the underlings have graduated high school and even college. Do-shik is promised the territory as long as he achieves a high school diploma and is enrolled in a private school as a 19-year-old. In the meantime, another senior member of the gang is going to take care of everything. After he has gotten the diploma, he can come back and take over the gang. His right-hand man, Sang-do, a college graduate, and Ka-rai, a goofball meathead, are his primary support throughout Do-shik's high school experience, and they are going to aid him in keeping his true identity hidden. Ka-rai is someone who is an absolute idiot and keeps getting beaten up by Do-shik because of his shenanigans. Do-shik then tells his boys to find him a good school where he can get a high school diploma. His boys talk to some people and go on to suggest some personal tuition as well. Sang-do makes a list of schools and the facilities they provide and brings the list of schools to Do-shik. Do-shik ends up taking admission in a private school. The man disguises himself as a 19-year-old boy. We see him giving himself a proper makeover before he makes his way to the school. When he goes out of the house, he finds all of his gang members waiting outside to congratulate him for going to school. Do-shik of course hates the idea and goes on to take Ka-rai's class for bringing this idea to the gang. Do-shik again scolds Ka-rai for getting him a bag he does not like when they are on their way to school. When they get there, he notices the students running towards the same, and he of course tries to copy them to fit in. It, however, turns out that they are just running from a math teacher who happens to be really strict. Do-shik encounters Yoon-ju while they are running to school to avoid getting punished for tardiness. A small purse falls out of her book bag as she runs, which Do-shik retrieves, causing him to be late. Sang-do and Ka-rai look on as Do-shik and other students who arrive late are punished by Mr. Jo, the math teacher. As a punishment, he is made to kneel down along with the other students who also got late. As that goes on, Ms. Lee, a really hot teacher who teaches English at the school, walks by, and everyone, of course, gives her a smile. Sang-do also takes a close look at the hot teacher, and he right away seems to have fallen for the woman. In the next scene, we see Yoon-ju getting into a fight with her classmates who bully her. The bullies are led by a student named Ji-hai. As they brawl in the hallway, the dean gets there and asks them to meet him in his office. However, Ji-hai and her friends are immediately dismissed without punishment. Yoon-ju and her friends, on the other hand, are made to stay at the office as the dean goes on to give them a piece of his mind. Do-shik, on the other hand, is taken to his new class by Mr. Jo. He introduces himself to the class and makes everyone laugh, and they applaud him before he goes on to sit next to Yoon-ju. As the class goes on, Do-shik again gets punished by Mr. Jo for not being able to do his classwork. During the lunch break, the bullies of course spot the newcomer. They beat Do-shik and tease him. To their good luck, he does not reveal his true self and goes on to act like an innocent boy to keep his identity hidden from everyone at his school. We then see a local crazy man with wild hair, a trench coat, and a camcorder. He is constantly recording his surroundings and is regularly seen around the school grounds. After school, he goes to a store and asks for a pack of cigarettes, only to get beaten up by the shop owner as he thinks that Do-shik is just a schoolboy and underage. Then we see Sang-do practicing using sword and Ka-rai makes fun of him. As they do that, Sang-do receives a call from Do-shik, who tells him to bring him some food for lunch. Sang-do right away goes to the school with some food and runs into Ms. Lee. He of course introduces himself as Do-shik's uncle. When Do-shik is having lunch, everyone is impressed with the food he has on his table because the high school does not really get to enjoy this many luxuries. Sang-do, on the other hand, goes out on a date with Ms. Lee and tells her that she can contact him if she ever gets in any kind of trouble. When Do-shik is about to leave for school the next day, Sang-do gives him something to give his English teacher as a gift. Do-shik places the gift on Ms. Lee's table in the staff room. When she arrives and opens the gift, it turns out to be a bikini. We then see Dean asking the male students to get their circumcision done, and there they go, and come out barely able to walk. That day, when Do-shik is getting back from school, a member of a rival gang recognizes him and tells his leader about him going to school. The school continues through the semester. In a private meeting, the dean is urging Mr. Joe to unfairly change the grades of certain students, particularly that of Ji-hai, who has wealthy and influential parents and is essentially paying for the prestige of having high grades and earning a scholarship. Mr. Joe refuses and notes that this corruption would push deserving students below the scholarship threshold and names Yoon-ju specifically as a deserving student who would lose out. Later on, the dean interrupts a class to embarrass and punish students who have not paid monthly dues to the school. It is apparent that the school collects hundreds of dollars from each of the students each month, and some, such as Yoon-ju, are several payments behind. Mr. Joe walks in and forces the dean out. That day, in the English period, Ji-hai is caught cheating, and Ms. Lee asks her to leave the class, but she does not do it, instead go on to insult her in front of the whole class. Ms. Lee is, however, not at all impressed by her tall stature because her parents are rich. She goes on to slap her in front of everyone. Ji-hai right away goes to the bathroom and calls her mother, telling her about Ms. Lee. Her mother comes to the class right away and slaps Ms. Lee in front of everyone and drags her out of there by her hair. The dean defends the parents and verbally reprimands Ms. Lee while Mr. Joe stands up for her. Mr. Joe is later called into the principal's office where he is insulted and threatened with termination if he doesn't change Ji-hai's grades. This tears into the conscience of Mr. Joe, a teacher who truly cares about his students, particularly those who aren't privileged. He returns to class very dejected and starts hitting one of the class clowns that had been misbehaving, but the bully disrespectfully talks back to Mr. Joe and pushes him down. This enrages Do-shik and severely beats up the bully inside the classroom for his insubordination to the teacher. He might be a gang leader, but he does not stand up to a good-hearted teacher being beaten up like that. Do-shik, who had generally been under the radar, is now feared and respected by his classmates. That evening, Do-shik calls the bully and gives him some food and drinks. As they sit together, Do-shik tells him to respect the teachers as they are no less than the teachers. When they are still sitting there, the bully's rival group arrives and Do-shik saves him from them. Things calm down, and Mr. Joe has a private meeting with Yoon-ju, urging her that she needs to study harder to get a scholarship. It's clear that he was forced to fudge Ji-hai's grades, which no longer made Yoon-ju eligible for a scholarship, which puts even more pressure on her. At the same time, Ms. Lee is called into a private meeting with the principal, who sexually assaults her by inappropriately touching her hair, neck, and chest. She storms out immediately in tears and momentarily bumps into Do-shik in the hallway. That night, Yoon-ju and Do-shik go out on a date, and she jokingly asks him to marry her so he could pay for her college tuition. He knows it's a joke, but fully understands that she is poor and has no chance at attending college without a scholarship. They randomly run into Sang-do and Ms. Lee, who is out for a drink. The four of them enjoy a fun night of drinking and karaoke as a means to let off some steam and party their sorrows away. Do-shik is still completely oblivious to the corruption that is going on in the school, despite witnessing Ms. Lee crying, Mr. Joe acting strangely, and seeing the dean act as a bill collector. The next evening, Do-shik is with Sang-do and Karai at a private bar in their gang headquarters and is about to enjoy a fun night with hot girls. He is shocked to his core when one of the girls turns out to be Yoon-ju. Now that Do-shik's true identity is revealed, the two of them have a private conversation, and he asks her why she's doing this while imploring her to quit. While weeping, she tells him that she took on this degrading job because she desperately needs the money for college and her youth and virginity will help her earn more money. She mentions that Do-shik, who is financially well off, will never understand how bleak her future looks. She storms off weeping while Do-shik sits alone, clearly distraught. Immediately after, he tasks Sang-do to do a little digging into the school and the principal. The next day at school, things are clearly awkward between Do-shik and Yoon-ju. Before either can say a word to one another, another student runs into class in tears, informing everyone that Mr. Joe had resigned. All the students are in tears while Mr. Joe quietly gives his final lesson. Despite his harsh and strict ways, the students know he had pure intentions and fights hard for them. Mr. Joe and Ms. Lee are packing their belongings in the teacher's quarters, with Ms. Lee breaking down in tears. Later, Yoon-ju is seen sitting in the computer lab in front of one computer. This is noted by the dean, but he doesn't think much of it. Sang-do, on the other hand, does some research on the principal. It turns out that the principal is somehow the owner of malls and golf courses. He also tells Do-shik that the man has connections with their rival gang as well. On the following day, the school is hit with a scandal as an expose of bribery, fixed grades, and insane monthly dues are posted on the school's website, as well as the website of the Department of Education. The principal and dean are enraged about these reports and wonder who might have possibly leaked this information, and based on the wording, it is probable that it was submitted by a student. The dean instantly remembers Yoon-ju sitting in the computer lab. The principal shows up in Yoon-ju's class, calls her out, and severely beats her to the point where she is bloodied and knocked unconscious and has to be taken to the hospital by Do-shik and her friends. After this incident, the fired teachers, as well as the students who refused to attend class, formed a protest. Do-shik remains in the class despite the pleading of his classmates to join them in the protest because he doesn't want to jeopardize his chances at graduation. That night, he discusses with Sang-do what his options are. Sang-do implores him to stay in school and graduate, but Do-shik knows that it is the wrong thing to do. Do-shik visits Yoon-ju at the hospital that night. She sobs on his shoulders, and while it is clear that he feels for her, he is torn. When Do-shik goes to the school the next day, he sees that the school has not only blocked off the fired teachers, but students as well. The principal arrives with gang members who assault Mr. Jo, Ms. Lee, and even the students. Upon seeing this, Do-shik can no longer hold his breath, gives the green light to his own gang for an attack, and starts fighting. His cover is now completely blown, but his crew overtakes the rival gang and storms the entrance of the school. They scream for the principal to come out, but many more members of the rival gang appear. They have an all-out brawl in the schoolyard with baseball bats and other weapons. Do-shik stops it and challenges the rival gang member to fight him one-on-one. The one-on-one fights go on for a long time until the police come to arrest them all. The entire time, the crazy man had been recording everything and slips the videotape into the pocket of a news cameraman. The school's corruption has been successfully exposed. Do-shik, on the other hand, earns a diploma equivalency while in jail and is congratulated by his superior. Much to his dismay, he is told that he needs even more education to run the territory. He is asked to go to college, and this is where the movie ends. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.